Following the 2024 and 2025 elections, young voters have been and are becoming one of the most influential groups in America. In a world that's constantly changing, what drives their decisions? Today, Penn State's NAACP chapter and Culture Central are bringing students together to explore what matters most to them when it comes to voting. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. The rules are simple. When you agree with a statement, step forward and take a seat. If you disagree, stay back. We'll then bring those forward who disagree, if any, to discuss. Let's begin shared space. Statement 1. My vote matters.
So when we choose to not go out and vote, we are depriving ourselves of the opportunity to speak up and advocate for ourselves. I think even in this past election, if this one girl, she voted for her mom to win like a small town, and her mom won by literally 4 votes. So had she and other people not gone to vote, their voice would not have been heard and they wouldn't be able to advocate for themselves.
It's true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like people, like, as you said, overlook like even local elections. Like we're always like talking about like, you know, housing and like just like funds in general, and they don't realize that the people you vote for locally affect that, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think even the small elections, like local elections, even in your school, they do matter so much because it's the community you live in, and you are the one that wants to make the change. And I think that just one person can set that vote on the edge of winning. So it really is important to go ahead and vote.
I feel like it's such a powerful statement because especially a lot of people's ancestors have fought so hard for us to be able to vote, both of our race and our religion, and also because whether we're male or female. So I feel like everyone's vote matters. It makes it even more powerful because of that.
And then just to follow up on that, I do think everybody's vote matters, of course, because how many people like that you hear from, they say that their vote doesn't matter. But if 200-something people think that in one small town, like those are the things that could like decide elections. So numbers matter, and I do think everybody's vote matters. Because if multiple people have that same mindset, it really makes it harder to win elections and really just, yeah.
I kind of want to piggyback off of that. I agree. Just the whole my vote doesn't matter thing. It's a trend that, you know, one person says it, and then there's also 20 other people that think the exact same way, and that's how elections are lost. So I agree with that, definitely.
Social media has too much influence on how young people vote.
Again, with things like misinformation, AI, it kind of does hamper like you getting real information, so it makes it harder to make informed decisions that you could actually rely on. So I do think if you're getting your sources and your information from reputable sources, then it's easier to make informed decisions. But if you're seeing things like AI or misinformation from fake accounts, bot accounts, it really does make it hard to make informed decisions and actually make a choice that you could respect later down the line because it was a choice that you made while you were informed. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, this is such a kind of sensitive, kind of difficult topic to touch on just because with social media, a lot of politicians have promoted themselves, and you know, you can gain a lot from social media, but there's also a lot on social media that is fake or that just takes things out of context. So it's definitely a difficult way to navigate. You definitely need to know your sources and what you're reading.
Yeah, definitely. I think social media has such a large impact just because the simple fact people don't know what's real and what's fake anymore. And then also people don't like to do their research or, you know, they're fact checking. They just see one thing and just go with it. So, and then, you know, spread it to the next person. I think that has a big effect as well. And then also just the fact that people that's where a lot of people get their information from, social media. And I think that's a common issue.
Yeah, and I feel like the key like word here like is effort. Like I feel like people just need to start showing more effort in, you know, what their future is gonna look like. Because like if you're just seeing something on social media or like one TikTok scrolling, you're like, oh, I believe this, then like you're gullible. Oh, no, my fault. I don't mean that. But yeah.
No, I definitely agree. Like, you need to thoroughly research what you're reading. Like, go on big TV news networks, like, do good research, and then you can make a decision based off, like, the fact checking you did, not just based off something, just like a single post.
But I also think it has a positive impact as well for younger people, as you know, it's easier to trend and see things on the internet.
I also think that we shouldn't just listen to just what one side says or what the other side says. Like, after they say something, you should definitely research it yourself to make sure what they're saying is correct and actually reputable and actually a fact check. So
I do agree with that as well, because I feel like in this day and age, people can definitely, especially younger minds, can definitely be followers, and I feel like that's how social media may affect it. May see something like everyone else is saying and kind of go with it, maybe AI, and people follow that instead of doing their research.
Yes, sure.
I think for me, the reason why I didn't step forward just because there is misinformation and disinformation just everywhere nowadays in media, whether it be on the big news networks. Unfortunately, there isn't as much, I think, non-biased sources. So I think social media has had the reason why I didn't step forward is because I think that it's had more of a positive effect than negative effect for young voters. I think it's a great way for young voters and young minds to mobilize and discuss topics. But obviously, it's going to be hard to do that if they're not doing their own research. But I think that applies for any form of media, any form of communication. But I think the good outweighs the bad when it comes to social media, because it's harder for us to know about topics when we're not educated on it. And there's no forum for us to discuss it other than social media.
There is respect for different political viewpoints on campus.
Well, I think it's a certain level of respect when it comes to different viewpoints on campus. I don't think it's a problem with anyone who votes one way and the other person thinks another way. There shouldn't be a particular issue with that. And I think that on campus, everybody's voice is allowed to be heard, and you exercise your freedom of speech. So I think that kind of gives it a good kind of shared space to have different viewpoints, but also maybe see something differently than maybe you didn't see before.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I know there was just an event hosted. I think it was PSU Dems versus PSU Republicans. And I feel like spaces like that, let there be what was the question? Oh yeah, let there be a space for respect for both views, because I feel like they were able to have a debate and it stayed respectful. So I feel like this campus doesn't really limit our freedom of speech.
Yeah, then also the fact that you learn something new every day. So maybe you might see a different point of view on one particular thing that you didn't see before, but at the end of the day, you had a political debate and it didn't turn into something that it didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Basically.
Debates between Democrat, Republican, those are able to stay respectful because they're arguing about actual political issues like the economy, things like that. But I think now in today's age, politics has definitely shifted less towards actual politics and more towards human rights. So in that case, I can even speak for myself, and I'm guilty of this as well. But there are some issues where I cannot. I fundamentally disagree with someone, and there's no way for us to have a back and forth or a debate because we're arguing about whether someone has the right to exist or someone has autonomy over their own body, and that's hard for me to agree with. So for that reason, I think that there are some aspects of the campus where there are, I think, tension, but that's simply because we are shifting more towards politicizing human rights rather than talking about actual politics. But in a perfect world, or I think even 2016 years ago, there was definitely full respect, and you can disagree about actual political issues.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. I do have a question for you. So you said how when you're arguing with someone in terms of just human rights that you disagree with them, but would you take that disagree as you don't respect their view, or you just, because you can disagree with someone and respect them? So
I think honestly, depending on the issue, to an extent, yes. I think for me as a child of immigrants, it's hard for me to argue with someone who thinks that immigrants deserve less rights because you're speaking out my family or people that I know. So in that case, it would be hard for me to respect their views, and it would make me question them a little bit, just because I believe that every human has a right to exist and every human has the same values as I do. So for issues like that, yes. But for regular issues you think we should have more state rights instead of, you got that. I'm fine having debates like that.
To like piggyback off of what Madonna said, while I do like agree with like the PSU College Democrats versus like the Republicans, like the debates and stuff that they have, I do think those are respectful. I do think they're important as well. But sometimes on campus, like when you disagree with somebody, it kind of turns into, just because I feel like politics in this day and age are kind of like so partisan and politicized, it kind of turns into like a personal attack. So if you don't really like agree with somebody, they feel like you're kind of like attacking them and attacking their values and what they stand for. And I feel like because of that, it has affected relationships, friendships, like, and a lot of different other things. So while there still is like the debates and stuff that we have, I do think that there is other things where we can't really come to a common ground or like a respect thing. Like for instance, the memorial on the Hub lawn for Palestine and stuff, how people went over there and knocked them down and stuff. Like I feel like that was disrespectful. And I feel like those things are things that we can't really like agree on.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like nowadays you can't have like a simple debate, or you can't like simply respect one another because of your political choices. And I think that's insane. I think that has ruined a lot of friendships, families, and all sorts of relationships really. And I just think that's a shame, like a little bit. Like that's sad in a way.
I also kind of think that people oftentimes confuse disagreeing with someone with disrespect. I think that often kind of happens, and that also can lead to, you know, some tension or just completely shutting down, not wanting to hear what the person has to say anymore. And, you know, that kind of becomes an issue when you want to have a shared space within a community, because everybody's not going to agree with you, you know, on everything you say.
This has been Shared Space, the voting edition, a collaboration between Penn State's NAACP chapter and Culture Central. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to use your voice.